All right, welcome to another episode of It's Her Turn. I'm your host, Dr. Kate Dow, and really glad to be here with you today. We are jumping into discussing a bit, my perspective based on my experiences and studies and apprenticeships. Like, what is this sacred awakening feminine time, and why is it bringing up people's ancestral wounds and higher awareness about this history of trauma? So, uh, yeah, huge topic. We're going to cover it in sort of a brief way, just sort of to give a picture of what is happening right now. And in my experience, um, this has been part of humanity's shift that went way over to the side of let's experience what humanity is like when there is, absolutely the feminine being separated from consciousness, awareness, the body, the healthy sexuality, healthy spiritual connection. The patriarchy was almost this experiment to see what happens when the masculine becomes sort of distorted in this awareness of what power is. And um, in my understanding, that the patriarchy became sort of lost in that disconnection from the feminine and caught in that experience of wanting to feel safe and powerful and secure in a world that is not about that, right? Life is about impermanence at a basic spiritual premise and understanding and experience. Life is about the constant cycles of change, of life, death, rebirth, transformation. Life is messy. Life is emotional. Life is unpredictable. It's uncertain. And um, this became an intolerable aspect for the masculine within this patriarchal experience. And so the more they could master a sense of not feeling, afraid of death, essentially, right? To become overly focused on controlling people, controlling their lives, controlling nature, the more they could believe that they were safe and untouchable from this experience of death. And therefore, the feminine has been, you know, so disconnected and so lost that we've all experienced the and witnessed the trauma that's happened to people as a whole, but especially women and children, and especially the planet, all of which represent the feminine consciousness, the feminine aspect. Now, feminine is not a gender, even though I'm speaking to women as the holders of this sacred feminine and what we're seeing as the wounds. But the reality is, each person, each human soul, spirit is this relationship of the yin and the yang, of the feminine and the masculine. And even the yin and the yang are not necessarily, again, specific to just feminine or masculine qualities, depending on the point of view you're coming from. But let's understand that this extreme patriarchal, what I call distorted masculine experience, has created unrelenting trauma and damage to everyone. You have to be pretty damaged to live from a place where you think it's okay to abuse women and children and traffic them like animals. You have to be pretty disconnected to poison your own water and food for monetary gain. You have to be so lost to your own soul to think that money is going to save you, and that you're not going to die because you have power. So the feminine is this rude awakening of reality, of we are now sitting on the precipice of disaster, right? Climate change, um, impact to the environment, impact to the animals, impact to our quality of food, water, air, um, our health, more mental health, more chronic health conditions than ever has been on the planet. So much disconnection, so much disharmony because of this absolute disconnection from reality. I just keep saying disconnection, but it's like dissociation almost, really. We have to be so dissociated. And we have been. I mean, so what where did this COVID opportunity begin to force us into an awareness of an embodiment of the feminine? Well, it forced us to face the reality of death, and that we are not immortal, and that everything is dying and everything will die and we will die. And that is reality. And that makes us more awake to the precious gift of this life. We were forced to stop driving and running around and being busy and wasting time. And we were forced to be home and appreciate our lives, our people, the people we care about, our families, our friends, and even reconsider, what is it we're doing? How are we living? Are we living in a way that feels connected to what is meaningful and valuable to us? Right? People moving all over the planet, because their work situations shifted. Where do they really want to live? Maybe they really need to get to the country and be out of the city. They really want to go grow food instead of working in a corporate America environment. This forced this opening to the feminine, to recognizing, wow, look at the water that cleaned up in the canals in Italy because people weren't trashing it every day, right? The oceans have a moment to breathe without all of our pollution. So, with this awakening of life, consciousness, death, awareness, the cycle of life and death, came this opportunity of consciousness, because we are at this pivotal time that is asking us to step into awareness, not only of where are we needing to attend to our wounds, right? Where we can't walk in our wisdom if we're still in our woundedness without consciousness. And being a wounded warrior is simply about bringing consciousness to your wounds that they then transform into wisdom. It's my favorite understanding after being a seeker for the last 58 years on this planet of why are we suffering, what can help, what can we all do to serve and support each other. And this awareness of the past and what has been is not about trying to go live in the past. It is simply to be so brave to know that you cannot walk in your wholeness and integrity of all that you are if there's pieces of you left behind in woundedness. Now, my parents did not have this full consciousness, even though they were way more conscious than their parents, but they They were not interested in really going and doing, counseling and looking at their trauma. So, what happens when generations are unable or unwilling or really incapable to process trauma? It gets passed down, right? Epigenetics, the science of epigenetics. What are our genetic codes that are getting turned on and what are getting turned off? And this consciousness is turned on. We know that this is our work to do, because in order to heal and want to support and be connected again to our world, to each other, to the earth, to appreciate our lives, to value this incredible gift of our life, we have to be fully present, which we cannot do when we have trauma that we've been avoiding and hiding from and running from our whole lives. And there's more energy and consciousness available now to do that work with less, what do I want to say? It's still, of course, scary and painful to do our deep work, but there's more consciousness and energy available, and healers and people who bring forward their wisdom for that to happen with, what I want to say, with a little less calamity, a little less just total terror, because we have people and energy that can hold more of a container of care, right? That sacred feminine is all about the ability to bring forward this nourishing, supportive, loving, earth connected energy. This it's the feminine, which of course is not always soft and loving. The feminine is also, the deep rage and anger at what's happened. It's the fight. It's the warrior who can show up and be absolutely um, just relentless and ruthless. Ruthless is the word I'm looking for, because that is the part we are coming into as the feminine. But to get there, we've got to do this wounded warrior work, because if we're just jumping into the rage work to fight against the patriarchy, we will burn out like that, like a candle just going out. In order to be that eternal flame, we have to deepen our embodiment and connect into who we are. We have to ground into the earth, come into our sacred waters, and do that healing work that allows us to be that flame, not just have it in our anger and it gets blown out. And to do that is to be the woman who does that deeper healing recovery journey, right? And so many of us are awakening to that. We're having that sense of like, I got to do this, and if I did a lot of work before, it's time to do more. It's time to do the next level. And that's the calling that we all are having. And everyone at different levels are waking up to, because this ancestral healing is waiting for us. Yeah. It's waiting, because we now have the consciousness and care and ability to do that work, to not only show up for ourselves, but to know that everything we're doing out of that devotion and care and willingness to step into what is happening and what we've come through, we are bringing that consciousness to the wound and allowing the healing to happen back 7 generations, and even further if we are doing intentional work with that. It's also supporting the 7 generations forward, right? So, what does that look like? For some people, it's just been like recognizing that they're so anxious, they're finally going to go get some support because they're just so spun out from this whole pandemic. Great, go start your journey. For some, it's people who've been working hard on their journey, doing that recovery work, and they're just like, oh my gosh, here's the next level. I know I've got to do this deeper work because it's a sense of it's needed to complete our full embodiment of ourselves to be here for what we came here to be or do or just hold space for this change that is here and it is happening. So the sacred feminine automatically holds the space of the whole, right? And she invites this awareness of the shadows, of the places that we have not been looking, right? The patriarchy's had little blinders on. So it could be like, nope, nope, not going to look at that, not going to look at that, you know? And now in the last many years, right, we have all of this historic abuse, tragic, just genocide that's been happening for the last hundreds of years. And it's being named, it's being claimed, and the healing is happening, right? From from the boarding schools in Canada where, where there was awareness and acknowledgement now of the Native American children who were taken and abused in boarding schools. And that is being, held space for that healing to the priests who've been abusing children throughout, the world, but let's say the United States, and that is being acknowledged and people are getting healing about that, right? The perpetrators may not be doing their work yet, but the people who are, have been the people who've been harmed, right? And that's this thing. We can't wait for the perpetrators to do their work. We have to do our work as the people who've come through it, who've been abused, who've been molested, who've been raped, who've been violated, who've been, domestically abused. We are the ones to say, I'm going to do my work no more, and I'm not going to tolerate this behavior. And that is forcing the issue, right? That is forcing the issue of women are going to no longer put up with, right? Allowing their children to be abused, right? That's a really key cycle that's been happening, is women being unconscious about their own abuse and therefore perpetuating abuse, allowing it, turning their eye away. That happened with me in my experience growing up. And, you know, I we can't fault the people who were too terrified or didn't have any consciousness to do the work around that, which is pretty much, the history. People didn't have the tools, the skills, the support to do that kind of trauma work. So we are the ones. We are the ones that are leading this movement of, you know, being the wounded warriors who are going to do the work so we can stand for what we know is true and right, around caring for this precious life, caring for this precious planet, caring for each other, right? And fully coming home to ourselves, coming home to who we are, not the story of the shame and the pain of, not being good enough according to the values of the patriarchy, right? Not that one. The new story, the I am whole. I have come through hating and shaming and blaming myself. I have come through being violated and abused and harmed. I have come through that and I am whole. This is the message of the sacred feminine. This is the message that we get to hold and speak for the ancestral lineage. My mom was never able to fully even remember the trauma she went through. And I have had a lot of just downloads and awareness about what it is she went through, including my grandmother and my grandmother's mother, just as an example. And that has opened and clarified a lot in my lifetime, for all that I was struggling with and manifesting in my life. It was so much my journey to heal this matrilineal wound, which of course isn't just matrilineal. I mean, once you get into it, it's men and women on both sides of the generational cycle going back. Abuse, trauma, pain, woundedness, separation from self. So the sacred feminine is the calling, and I just want to be here cheering you on to know that take whatever next step you can, even just a small one, a tiny step at a time, because it's worth it. The freedom that we begin to cultivate when we face what we've been afraid of is, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. And of course, it's not like a race that you just, you can go and then you're done. It is that spiral. It is that ever evolving spiral of consciousness where we are cleansing and we are clearing things again and again, and sometimes, and to trust that that is us being able to get even more wise because we are facing and embracing and embodying that wound at a deeper level. And then we don't have to go and feel like we're starting over. We can just be like, oh yeah, I am ready to see this in a whole new light. I can hold it and I can embrace it and love myself even more now with this awareness. So that's what we're up to here. And I just want you to find the people in your life, the resources in your community or online that can support you the most in this journey. Because we need, as women, really men too, but right now I'm focused on holding that space for women. I have a Facebook group called Fearless Feminine Wisdom, and it's for us. It's for us to have a sacred space to talk about these challenges, these opportunities to step into this deeper healing and transformation that we're all about, so that we can show up and help facilitate whatever this is that's going to happen. And I'm not going to say I know for sure what's going to happen. All I know is this is like being conscious at your time of death. You have an opportunity to embrace that with a whole different awareness that will serve you and the people around you. Anytime we're in a huge transition, even if we're scared shitless, if we show up and do the best we can, we have an opportunity to grow and evolve in that moment into more of who we are, which I believe has to do with actually embracing more and more of our love, right? Our love, our connection to everything, our trust in the unity consciousness that we all are part of. So that's what we're about now. We may not know what's going to happen, but the more awake we are, the more in our hearts we are, the more whole we are because we've been doing this, wound work, then we can be here together holding hands to celebrate and bring the best intentions for whatever's meant to be. So, and that means personally and collectively, but I'm kind of a crazy optimist. I do secretly hold a very positive intention and desire for consciousness to land on this planet in such a huge way that things could change that we couldn't even possibly imagine. And that starts with us coming home to ourselves and coming into contact and deep recognition of that the environment, the planet is us and we are the planet. So we need to stop killing it. And we are connected. We are all on this web of life, on this planet, in this universe, spinning around the universe, and we're all in it together. So the more we can be conscious and love and heal so that we can show up for ourselves, the more we can show up in that love and care for everyone. And I mean everyone, because we can't do it separate than that. So that's the sacred feminine awakening, and the ancestral healing is just part of us, sort of like doing the cleanup. We're doing the cleanup so that we can have this lineage of wisdom come through, not just the trauma, but the wisdom to come through the ancestral lines and help us at this time so that we can really elevate the opportunity of transformation here. All right. Love to hear from you if you feel like it. I'm at Dr. Kate Dow on Facebook. And if you have ideas for podcasts you want to hear about, I'd love to hear from you. Please know it's your turn to find your voice, own your truth, and claim your power. Have a good one. Thanks so much for being here. Be sure to share or give me a review. I'd love that. And take good care of yourself.